Ever feel invisible? Like your efforts vanish into thin air? You're not alone. This is for everyone who works tirelessly, yet feels unseen. In a world that constantly demands more, many of us pour our hearts and souls into our work, our relationships, and our families. We strive for excellence, go the extra mile, and often sacrifice our own well-being for the sake of others. Yet, despite our dedication, there are times when our efforts go unnoticed, our contributions are overlooked, and our very presence feels unacknowledged. This lack of recognition, whether in the workplace or within the family, can be a silent, corrosive burden, leading to deep feelings of resentment, frustration, and even despair. This script explores 5 common reactions to this painful experience and reveals the single, profound approach that can prevent us from breaking under the weight of unacknowledged effort, guiding us towards inner peace and resilience. Eleanor had always been the backbone of her team at the architectural firm. For 15 years, she was the first to arrive and the last to leave, meticulously reviewing blueprints, troubleshooting complex designs, and mentoring junior architects. She quietly fixed problems before they escalated, smoothed over client disputes, and ensured every project met its deadline, often working through weekends. Her colleagues respected her, and her projects consistently delivered exceptional results. Yet, when promotions were announced, her name was consistently absent. The flashy, charismatic designers, who often took credit for her behind-the-scenes brilliance, were celebrated. At home, it was a similar story. She managed the household, organized family events, and was the primary caregiver for her aging parents, while her siblings, who contributed far less, received effusive praise from relatives. One evening, after another late night at the office, she overheard her younger, less experienced colleague, Mark, being lauded by their boss for a project Eleanor had single-handedly salvaged. Later that night, her mother called, praising her brother for a small favor he'd done, completely overlooking Eleanor's years of consistent care. Eleanor felt a cold, hollow ache spread through her chest. She wasn't angry at Mark or her brother. She was simply empty. All her dedication, all her quiet sacrifices seemed to evaporate into thin air. She looked at her reflection in the dark window, a stranger staring back, tired and unseen. A quiet desperation began to settle in, a question echoing in her mind. Does any of this even matter? Eleanor's story is not unique. It's an echo of countless lives lived in quiet dedication, where the loudest applause often goes to those who stand in the spotlight, not those who build the stage. The pain of being unseen, of having our efforts swallowed by the void of indifference, is a universal human experience. It gnaws at our sense of worth, whispers doubts into our minds, and can leave us feeling utterly depleted. But what if the true measure of our worth isn't found in external validation, but in something far more profound? What if the path to resilience in the face of unrecognition lies not in demanding applause, but in understanding the very nature of our actions and the true source of our inner peace? This is where ancient wisdom offers a beacon, illuminating a path beyond the need for external mirrors. When our efforts go unacknowledged, our minds often fall into predictable patterns of response. Let's explore 5 common reactions and the single profound shift that can set us free. 1. Resentment and blame. Reaction. This is the immediate, visceral response. We feel a surge of anger and injustice. We blame others, our boss, our colleagues, our family members, for not seeing our worth. We replay scenarios in our minds, cataloging every slight and every missed opportunity for recognition. This bitterness can fester, poisoning our relationships and our own well-being. Buddhist lens, dosa, aversion, and tanha. Craving for recognition. This reaction is rooted in dosa, aversion, towards the perceived injustice, and tanha, craving, for external validation. We are attached to the idea that our efforts should be recognized, and when they are not, we suffer. This attachment creates a cycle of blame and suffering, preventing us from finding peace. 2. Self-deprecation and withdrawal. Reaction. Instead of blaming others, we turn the blame inward. We question our own abilities, our worth, and our significance. Maybe I'm not good enough. My work isn't important. I don't deserve recognition. This leads to a spiral of self-doubt, diminished confidence, and often withdrawal from further exertion or engagement. Buddhist lens, moha, delusion, and mana. Conceit. This reaction, paradoxically, is also a form of mana, conceit, as it still centers on the ego's perception of its own inadequacy. It's also fueled by moha, delusion, about our inherent worth. We mistakenly believe our value is contingent on external praise, rather than recognizing our intrinsic Buddha nature. This leads to unnecessary suffering and a lack of samavayama, right effort, to continue contributing. 3. Excessive competition. Reaction. Driven by a desperate need for recognition, we become overly competitive. We start comparing ourselves to others, trying to outshine them, and seeking validation through external achievements. Every interaction becomes a contest, and every success of another feels like a personal defeat. This creates a stressful, unsustainable existence. Buddhist lens, tanha, craving, and upadana. Clinging. This reaction is a clear manifestation of tanha, craving, for superiority, and upadana, clinging, to the idea of being better than others. It's a relentless pursuit of external markers of success, which can never truly satisfy the deep-seated need for inner peace and contentment. This prevents the development of metta, loving-kindness, and mudita, sympathetic joy, for others' success. 4. Retreat and disengagement. Reaction. Feeling defeated and exhausted by the lack of recognition, we gradually disengage. We do the bare minimum, lose enthusiasm, and stop investing our full selves. We might become cynical or apathetic, believing that our efforts are futile anyway. This leads to stagnation and a loss of purpose. Buddhist lens, moha, delusion, and dukkha. Suffering. This reaction is a direct consequence of dukkha, suffering, from unfulfilled expectations, and moha, delusion, that withdrawing will alleviate the pain. While it might offer temporary relief, it ultimately leads to a deeper sense of emptiness and disconnection from our potential for growth and contribution. This hinders samma ajiva, right livelihood, and samma kamanta, right action. 5. The path of inner recognition, seeing the hidden craving. Reaction. This is the transformative response. Instead of reacting outwardly or turning inward with self-blame, we pause and observe. We recognize the discomfort, the frustration, the yearning for acknowledgement. But then, we go deeper. We ask, why do I need this recognition so much? What is the underlying craving? Buddhist lens, vipassana, insight, meditation, and anatta, not self. This reaction embodies vipassana, insight meditation, and the profound understanding of anatta, not self. We realize that the suffering isn't caused by the lack of external recognition itself, but by our tanha, craving/attachment, to it. We are attached to the idea that our worth is validated by others' opinions. By seeing this hidden craving, we begin to loosen its grip. We understand that our inherent worth is not dependent on external praise or acknowledgement. Our actions, when performed with sati, mindfulness, and samma sankappa, right intention, for the benefit of others, or simply because it is the right thing to do, carry their own intrinsic value. This is the path of true liberation from the cycle of seeking external validation. Why this is the only way to not break. When our sense of self-worth is rooted internally, based on our intentions and actions rather than external reactions, we become unshakable. The absence of recognition no longer has the power to shatter us. because our foundation is built on the unshakable ground of our own compassionate and mindful being. We continue to contribute, not for applause, but because it aligns with our deepest values and brings us inner peace. Bridge to wisdom, the unseen harvest. Eleanor's journey, and indeed our own, often leads us to a crossroads. Continue to chase the fleeting echoes of external validation, or turn inward to cultivate a recognition that can never be taken away. The wisdom of the Buddha teaches us that true peace is not found in the absence of challenges, but in the transformation of our relationship to them. When we cease to crave the fruit of our actions and instead focus on the purity of the action itself, we discover a wellspring of contentment that flows independently of external circumstances. This is the unseen harvest, a profound inner richness that grows in the fertile ground of non-attachment. A Buddhist perspective, the pain of unrecognition stems from our fundamental misunderstanding of self and reality. We operate under the delusion that our worth is external, a commodity to be granted or withheld by others. Buddhist teachings illuminate this delusion and offer a path to true, unshakable self-worth. Tanha, craving/attachment, the root of suffering. The core of our suffering when unrecognized is tanha, craving or attachment. We crave praise, validation, and acknowledgement. This craving is a form of lobha, greed. When this craving is not met, it leads to dukkha, suffering. The Buddha taught that suffering arises from craving and attachment to things that are impermanent and not truly ours. Recognition, being external and fleeting, falls squarely into this category. By understanding tanha, we begin to see that the problem isn't the lack of recognition, but our attachment to needing it. Anatta, not self, liberating our worth. Central to overcoming the need for external recognition is the understanding of anatta, not self. If there is no fixed, permanent self, then who is it that needs to be recognized? The self that craves acknowledgement is a construct, an illusion. When we truly grasp anatta, we realize that our inherent value is not something that can be given or taken away by others. It simply is. Our actions flow from our being, not from a desire for external reward. This understanding liberates us from the endless pursuit of validation. Nekkhamma, renunciation/letting go, the path to freedom. Nekkhamma, renunciation or letting go, is the practice of releasing our attachments, including the attachment to recognition. This doesn't mean we stop striving or contributing. It means we do so without clinging to the outcome or the praise. We perform our duties with sati, mindfulness, and samavayama, right effort, focusing on the process and the intrinsic value of our actions. When we let go of the need for external validation, we find a profound sense of freedom and inner peace that no amount of praise could ever provide. To build a foundation of self-worth that is independent of external recognition, consider these practices. 1. Practice mindful action. Focus on the act itself, not the outcome or the potential praise. When you perform a task, do it with full awareness and dedication, simply because it is the right thing to do or because it benefits others. The reward is in the doing. 2. Cultivate self-compassion. When feelings of unrecognition arise, acknowledge them without judgment. Offer yourself kindness and understanding. Remind yourself that your worth is inherent, not conditional on others' opinions. 3. Reflect on impermanence. Understand that all things, including praise and criticism, are impermanent. They arise and pass away. Clinging to them only leads to suffering. 4. Define your own metrics. Instead of relying on external validation, define what success and worth mean to you, based on your own values and principles. Celebrate your own small victories and acknowledge your own efforts. 5. Serve without expectation. Engage in acts of service or contribution without expecting anything in return. This practice directly challenges the craving for recognition and strengthens your capacity for selfless action. In a world obsessed with likes, shares, and applause, what if the most profound recognition we could ever receive comes not from others, but from the quiet knowing within ourselves? What if the true measure of our impact isn't in the trophies we collect, but in the silent peace we cultivate? If you've ever felt unseen, know that your worth is not diminished by the absence of an audience. Share this message, and let's redefine what it means to be truly recognized. Namaste.